to catch up on. There's Alpha Geek Radio. It's going live. I mean Alpha Geek Media, but I sometimes call it radio anyway because that's what I'm used to calling it now.
Wow. You should really think about changing careers, Tom.
From singing to something else.
No, I meant from podcasting to singing.
Yeah, or whatever that was.
Yes, or that. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we'll be late and early at the same time. Late for what we wanted to do, but early for what we were going to do. Before we changed our mind. Okay. Everybody ready?
I was born ready.
Here we go.
This is your captain speaking. I'd like to take a moment to remind you that this show is brought to you by listeners like you who give value for value. To show your support, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. We know you have a choice when it comes to getting your tech news, and on behalf of the crew, I thank you for choosing the Daily Tech News Show.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, November 24th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Patrick Beja, DTNS contributor and independent podcaster. That means no ties. No ties that bind you, Patrick Beja.
No ties bind me except those of the French administration that handles tax and VAT.
As you may notice, Patrick has been dealing with setting up his business entity recently quite a bit.
And the problem is, this thing that we're doing, especially from France using an American service, is really the first time that this has been done that way. And I've had, discussions with Patreon, and they confirmed that no actual company has had to request all of the things. No company from Europe has had to do all of this. So we're discovering
blazing a
all
trail
of it together.
You're
it is so exciting is the word I should use.
Yes. It'll go down in history.
I think the patches of hair that I've been pulling out are starting to show. So
this is how lobbyists are born, because people like you get frustrated with issues like this and then hire someone else to go take care of it.
I can't wait for the Patreon podcasters lobbying team to be put in place.
Absolutely. Hear that, Jack? Let's make that happen. All right. Let's also do some headlines. Dell has apologized for shipping PCs with that security certificate we were talking about yesterday that can be used by attackers to impersonate secure websites because they use the same key for the certificate on every place that it shows up. Dell says the certificate was associated with Dell Foundation services as part of a support tool that was intended to make it easier for support personnel to help customers. It wasn't adware, it wasn't malware, says Dell. Dell even thanked Hanno Bock, Joe Nord, and Kevin Hicks in their blog post for bringing the threat to the company's attention. Dell has issued an uninstaller app as well as giving you instructions if you would rather remove the certificate manually. And you can find out if your Dell has the certificate at all by visiting bogus.lessonslearned.org, which is not affiliated with Dell. That's a security researcher's site.
Perfect reaction, I think, given the circumstances. So let's command Dell for the reaction. We don't know about the actual certificate issue. But.
Yeah, and Dan Gooden points out, we'd like to know how this happened in the first place, because this sort of thing shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have been a thing. But yes, in retrospect, after that question of why did you let this happen, Dell, they are doing the right things today, saying, hey, here's what it was. We're really sorry. Thank you guys who pointed this out, not hammering the guys who pointed that out.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, actually saying, you did your job, thank you, this was valuable and useful, and not saying, wagging the finger.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you own a Pebble Time, Time Steel, or Time Round and use AT&T, you can update your watch to new beta software that lets you reply to texts from your watch with voice or a preloaded message.
What hit me about their post about this is Pebble said, the first non-Apple watch to do this.
You know what? If it actually is,
and it is
the first,
well, I think it is.
Is it the first on iOS or is it on all? Because I'm pretty sure that the Android Wear lets you do that, right? So
I guess it's first on iOS.
Yeah, right. So in this case, yeah, it's good. I'm not sure why anyone would use any watch other than an Apple Watch or a Pebble, I guess, on iOS. But yeah, good for you. It's good that Pebble is getting these kinds of capabilities on iOS as well.
Yeah, it's a great capability for Pebble. It does get less impressive the more it's like a Pebble that had to be bought this year, and you have to have AT&T as your phone service, like so it starts to narrow
Yeah,
down. Xiaomi launched its first all-metal devices, the Redmi 5.5-inch Note 3 and the 7.9-inch Mi Pad 2 tablet. The Redmi Note 3 phone has a fingerprint sensor on the back, 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and runs MIUI 7 in silver, gold, or dark gray colors. The phone is, not the OS. You can make the OS whatever color you want, I guess. It sells for RMB 899 for the 16 gigabyte version, or RMB 1099 for the 32 gigabyte version. RMB 1099 in Chinese currency is about $172 US. The Mi Pad 2 has an Intel processor, 6,190 milliamp hour battery, with fast charging support, a reading mode that cuts out that annoying blue light that you've been reading so much about on your local news sites, and a USB-C connector. Tablet ships in champagne gold or dark gray with MIUI 7, or in December, they'll be shipping out, late December anyway, a Windows 10 variant of their tablet. The 16 gigabyte tablet retails for RMB 999. It's about 156 bucks US, and the 64 gigabyte at RMB 1299, so a little over 200 US. Both go on sale in China November 27th.
I wonder if the name Redmi is an act of patriotism in honor of the People's Republic of China. And if that's the case, I'm really excited to see a red, white, and blue phone coming out in the US sometime soon.
Yeah, or France.
Or France, absolutely, yeah.
Or do you do blue, white, and red?
We don't do anything. We're not as patriotic as you guys are. So
you're patriotic in a different way, just not.
Yeah, that could be discussed in another show. Yeah. Philip Shane. Oh, sorry, you wanted to comment on the Redmi? No,
no. I mean, this is no new phones. Yay.
Well, Philip Shane wanted us to mention Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin company successfully launched and landed its VE-3 rocket on land Monday, November 23rd. The rocket reached a suborbital height of 100.5 kilometers, then made a controlled descent and vertical landing. Blue Origin aims to conduct suborbital space tourism.
And Elon Musk congratulated them, then pointed out that he'd landed a rocket from much lower of a height on land before, and he has already tried orbital rockets to land on water. It starts to become a billionaire fighting billionaire thing there. I don't think Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin responded to that, but this is a historic event, a much higher. I think it was only a couple kilometers off the ground that SpaceX's rocket took, which was still impressive. This is a much higher version of it, so it's kind of a next step.
And when they combine the space rockets with their self-driving technology, we'll have something
Blue Origin
amazing.
is not Amazon. You will not see them scattering Amazon packages from the rockets. What is interesting, though, is SpaceX and Boeing are going to the International Space Station. In fact, both of them have been approved for manned missions to the International Space Station. Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic want to do space tourism, so they're kind of in different spheres here. They want to do suborbital flights for space tourism versus things like service the International Space Station. Although Blue Origin is involved with other companies on doing some orbital stuff as well. So, ZDNet's EdBot reports Microsoft has stopped offering its Windows 10 November upgrade, version 15.11, through its downloadable media creation tool. You can still get it through Windows Update, but the media creation tool was the one that let you go directly from Windows 7 just using your validation key, and it's only been out for 9 days. Microsoft hasn't really said why they got rid of that. They advise users who want to get the update 15.11 to use Windows Update. The media creation tool is still around, but it installs the July release, build 10.240. Microsoft has not offered any other explanation. If you're a Microsoft Developers Network member, I think you can still get the ISO of 15.11, which is essentially the same thing as the media creation tool version of it. But it's a little odd why they would have this out for 9 days and then yank it back.
It is very weird. And they haven't said, we've discovered a rare issue that prevents this or that. And I don't think there have been any reported.
And they haven't the update in general, right? Just the media creation.
Yeah, exactly. But, maybe the complete install that included the update could have caused a problem, and they haven't said we'll get it back out once we have this figured out.
Right.
So it's very surprising, and it is definitely not a big deal. It's an inconvenience. If you want to install a fresh system, you have to install the previous version and then update through the update tool. So it's not a huge deal. It's just strange, and I would like to know why. But
yeah, this is what the spokesperson said to ZDNet. The November update was originally available via the MCT tool, but we've decided that future installs should be through Windows Update. There you go.
So a perfect PR person saying words that don't bring any sort of information.
These words are all true, and you already knew them, but I'm saying them officially now. Yeah.
All right. JMZ668 wanted us to note that the ZDNet report that Amazon has reset passwords for some users after learning that the passwords in question may have been improperly stored on your device or transmitted to Amazon in a way that could potentially expose it to a third party. Amazon further explains it has no reason to believe passwords were exposed to a third party, but changed the login out of an abundance of caution.
This is one of those, you almost are doing it perfectly, but because you started doing it better than some companies used to, you kind of invite people to push you a little farther. My guess is they found a vulnerability themselves that no one else has discovered and took the proactive measure of saying, you know what, instead of sweeping it under the rug, let's change those passwords. Let's just be careful. Even though we don't have any evidence that anybody else saw this vulnerability, let's just be cautious, change those passwords. Great job, Amazon. But now everybody's like, okay, so tell us the vulnerability then. Because security researchers want to know that sort of thing. And Amazon has not been forthcoming about whether it even was a vulnerability. You know, what was the nature of the storage? They haven't given any details about that. So then it makes people wonder, you know, what, were they hacked and they're just trying to cover it up and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like if they were actually hacked, wouldn't they kind of have to say it even legally? I'm not sure. I'm not.
Well, eventually maybe, but a lot of companies don't want to discuss when they are attacked by malicious actors because they're in the process of hunting them down and they don't want to tip their hand. But then, you know, changing everybody's password certainly does tip the hand a little bit.
Yeah, your explanation and what is implied by what they're saying, which is there was a vulnerability, they realized they did something the wrong way and fixed it, makes sense. So it might not be the case, but it does make sense.
Reuters reports that Samsung will provide memory chips to Audi. That's a Volkswagen department, by the way. Samsung said the chips would be used as part of Audi's infotainment dashboard. Those are Samsung's words and probably Audi's, as well as driver assistance apps. So if you're one of the people who's following Samsung and the fact that they make most of their money off chips these days, this is good news for the company in general because they've found another client and it's in a fast-growing area, which is providing technology to cars.
By which you mean infotainment.
Yes, providing technology that enables infotainment across platforms, leveraging these efficiencies for our synergies to create a disruptive environment.
Oh, you stopped at disruptive environment.
I know, I ran out of steam.
Well, you know what? The Wall Street Journal reports that Apple Pay is expected to launch in China in early 2016. According to the journal's sources, Apple has struck deals with 4 of China's state-run banks so users can link their bank accounts to the mobile payment service.
Yeah, Apple Pay coming to the rest of the world, maybe even China in February. Keep your eyes peeled.
I'm hearing, or I've heard, that in some European countries, Apple Pay is meeting significant difficulties because the banks are unwilling to work with them.
Well, and you know, we did have somebody say, like, who wrote in, I think maybe he's from Australia. Sorry, can't remember. And said, like, look, anywhere that has NFC, you can use Apple Pay, and vice versa with Google Wallet, or Android Pay, or whatever they're calling it these days. And that's true, but you also have to have the card issuers on board with whatever system you're using. And that can be the thing in Europe, which is I have a credit card through my local bank and the local bank won't support Apple Pay. So it doesn't matter if the terminals take it and I've got the phone to compete with it. My payment processor won't do it. I'm screwed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you for submitting stories. Get in there and vote as well. We love the folks who submit stories and vote and help us put together the lineup every day. It does affect what we report on. So go to dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, and that is a look at the headlines. Now, you remember on a previous Daily Tech News show, we told you that Google is picking select videos that they believe represent clear, fair uses, which have been subject to DMCA takedowns, and they are indemnifying those videos, a select number of videos, against future court costs up to $1 million. Fred von Lohman had a nice post up on the Google blog about this. Now, they know they can't offer legal protection to everyone, but what Fred von Lohman says they're trying to do is build up he didn't call it a sizzle reel, but essentially, a number of examples of fair use, and hopefully, if they get taken to court, create precedents for fair use that will make it clearer. One of the problems with fair use is that lawyers conservatively tell people not to rely on it as a defense, and so you don't get a lot of court cases around fair use. People either settle out of court or they just don't exercise their fair use rights in very large amounts because they're afraid of getting sued. And what YouTube's trying to do here is change that. So real quickly, what a fair use defense in the United States is, and it's called fair dealing in the UK, and it's called different things in different parts of the world, and the law changes depending on what part of the world you're in. But since YouTube's in the US and YouTube is defending this in the US, the fair use in the US is based on precedent and legislation for judges to use 4 factors to resolve disputes. And these 4 factors are a guideline. They're not legal items. They're guidelines for the judge to determine. And it's all at the judge's discretion, which that's one of the things that makes it so mushy, is that even if you think one of the factors applies to you, you get the wrong judge, it might not. But these are the 4 factors. The main one you'll always hear about, and it is actually a Supreme Court precedent that it is the primary factor to be considered, is the purpose and character of your use. Are you transforming the original property? Are you adding value? Are you criticizing it? Are you commenting upon it? That's the one you hear about the most. There's also the nature of the copyrighted work. If the copyrighted work is a list of facts, then you have more fair use defense in using it because facts are in the public good. Also, if it's unpublished, you're going to have a harder time proving fair use than if something is published because an author has the right of first publication. Obviously, the amount you take applies. You can't take the heart of the work, although there's no clear 3 seconds or any limitation like that legally. It's all up to the judge's discretion. And then there's the effect upon the market. Does it deprive the originator of income, or does it undermine a new or potential market, even if the creator of that original content hadn't thought about using it that way? If it undermines that market, a judge can say, well, no, that's not fair use anymore. What happens on YouTube is they have the Content ID program that looks around for copyright infringements. If you get a Content ID claim, you can dispute it. The copyright owner then has 30 days to respond, or it goes away. If they respond and say, no, we're disputing that you own that copyright, you can appeal it. And then the copyright owner has 30 days to respond. And that's when they respond with a legal DMCA notification saying, you have to take that down. That is ours. At which point you can submit a counter notification, but the next step is a lawsuit. And of course, they have 10 days to complete that response, whether they're going to go to court or not. And they can go to court and get your video taken down, even if it's in dispute still at that point. So that last part is what YouTube is after, saying, look, a lot of people are not going to submit that last counter notification, even if they're sure they have a fair use claim, because they don't want to risk going to court. So in certain cases like that, we're going to step in and say, you know what, this is a good precedent-setting case. We'll take over and we'll pay any court costs if you get dragged into court.
And I think the most important part of all of this, which I'm sure everyone is waiting for us to say, is the disclaimer that your wife works for YouTube. So right. That is incredibly, yes. Essential. And for
buy the T-shirt on the DTNS store now.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a real headache for YouTube because it seems very convoluted for them to be doing this and to allow the content, the copyright holder to send notifications, and even to in their system is built in a block of an offending channel in order to protect the copyright holders. And then instead of handling this at the notification or identification level, they're letting this run its course and then intervening at the at the legal proceedings level later on, once there has been a trial or suing process put in place. And the reason for this is that YouTube cannot put their hands in the gears of what video is allowed to exist for copyright reasons or not, because if they do, they are not a neutral platform anymore. They become they exercise editorial oversight, and that makes them legally liable. I'm not a lawyer, so I might not be using the exact same terms, the right terms, but they really want to stay hands-off as much as possible, which has created this situation where people are afraid of disputing anything because most of them are probably going to be independent creators, sometimes small companies that can't afford the risk of an expensive trial. And I think this is very encouraging that they are doing this. It's not going to change everything overnight, but it's them noticing an issue and trying to influence the situation in the way they can to correct the issue. Because the effect that this has on the YouTube platform is that it gives content holders free rein to shut down any kind of commentary or criticism or review, which is one of the primary purposes for fair use, which creates value for society as a whole. You have to be allowed to review or criticize or comment on pretty much anything for society to function the way we want it to function. And it's very difficult to do on YouTube. A lot of people have been, expressing their frustration with those systems because they just can't use anything for anything, including fair use, without getting notices and the fear of getting their channel completely shut down if they dispute them. So it's
I have followed the dispute process through to the point where the next response was a lawsuit one time. And it was scary. Even though I was 100% sure that I was in the right, you still could get dragged into court, even if you're in the right. At which point, what they want is for you to settle out of court, right? And then you've had to pay for lawyers and all of that. So Fred von Lohman is setting up an excellent program here. It doesn't make me feel better, though, right? The idea of having to deal with Content ID at all makes me not do things on video that is going to be on YouTube. I don't comment on trailers, on cord killers. We make sure that they're really small. And I get very nervous about playing music because, again, even if I'm just playing a snippet, even if I'm commenting and criticizing it, I just don't want to deal with that. In fact, I've had situations where I've had to fight Content ID because I posted a video in 2 different channels that I own, and it said, oh, well, you're trying to monetize it on 2 channels, so that channel has the right. And I had to go to them and say, partner, hey, help me out here. So there is a huge chilling effect that I don't think this changes, because I don't expect that Google is going to ride in and save me. And so I'm just going to still continue to play it safe. At the same time, there are plenty of people who are exercising their fair use rights vigorously. And the fact that they will choose some of the best examples of them to say, you know what, we saw that you got a takedown notice. We're going to indemnify you. So keep fighting it. And if it goes to court, we'll pay your court costs. We'll help you out there. We'll defend you in court in certain cases if it comes to that. I think that's a noble aspiration to say, let's be a force that helps to build up this body of law so that the chickens like Tom Merritt start to look at it and feel a little comfortable because there's some precedents out there that they can point to and say, well, you don't want to sue me because look at this court case over here.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what they're trying to do. They're not going to be changing the mindset of content owners on YouTube from one day to the next. And of course, you as, small channel owner, Tom Merritt, it's not the day after this announcement that all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, woohoo, I can do the right thing. I was going to say whatever I want, but no, this is the important part. Oh. This is the important part. The Content ID system is very important to protect the copyright holders, but it's certainly, I'm not afraid to say that it has been abused to shut down uses that should be fair use. Not because of I don't think it's ill intent on anyone's part. It's just the way the system is built right now leads to these kinds of situations.
And the system
However,
was partially built to help defend themselves against Viacom in court. So it errs on the side of not being shown in court to be helping piracy.
yes, and we can get back to this in a beautiful, ironic way in a minute, but I wanted to come back to one thing you mentioned, which was the fact that some channels are fighting for fair use. And, there might be some, but I think the more general attitude has been to give up. Even the medium-sized channels. There was an example in a Mashable article of a few creators that were fairly well known. There's, for example, the Young Turks channel, which is pretty popular. They were saying, you know what, we've given up. We don't want to have to deal with this. So it is discouraging not just for small creators, but also for people who are starting to get pretty well known and who are building companies and actual information networks around the YouTube business. And I think YouTube needs these kinds of productions as well in order to legitimize itself as a platform. So it's also
which is another reason they're making this playlist of good examples of fair use, is to and using the Young Turks as an example, by the way, to say like, hey, don't give up. We're going to shine a spotlight on this.
And I think that ultimately, or hopefully, it will have a trickle-down effect that will tell content owners, guys, chill. You shouldn't just blanket, carpet bomb the entire platform with DMCA notices or,
that's the hope, anyway.
Claiming, and I think that if this doesn't work, I'm hoping that they are going to use other tactics to try and make this fair use surface back up a little bit more than it has been now, because they have embedded themselves in the media landscape and everyone is using them. So no one is saying anymore YouTube is just for piracy and we should make it go away. They're always going to be here now, so maybe they can start fighting for fair use again at this point.
Now, on the other side of the scale, you have YouTube creators getting very upset that their videos are now being posted on Facebook because without their permission. And so starting to feel the other side of the story of, hold on, this is an infinitely copyable medium, and someone's copying my medium. I don't like that. Which is, by the way, just on a personal note, why Daily Tech News Show is issued under a Creative Commons license that allows you to post it everywhere. And we've tried to create our business so that you should post it everywhere, and we benefit that way. That's what Patreon allows us to do. Say, hey, the more places it's in, as long as you have attribution, which the license requests, the better our show does. So if you went and posted it on Facebook, that's great. But there has become a mentality among people to say, and the good people, the people like, hey, I'd like to use your show for this. Can I have permission? It's like, great. That's really nice of you to ask permission. I've actually made it really easy so you don't have to. On the other hand, people who've grown up in the YouTube space have grown up in a culture that says, no, they own this, you own that. And so when something gets taken and put on Facebook, they justifiably and understandably say, well, hold on, no, you can't do that over there. And now Facebook is going to have to grow their own system to police this sort of thing.
This is the delicious irony of all of this. It's, YouTube was indeed built as a platform of, let's say, remixing in the beginning, and there was a lot of
open posting, really. I mean,
yeah,
because we like to joke like YouTube was built on piracy. There was a lot of that in the early days. It was also built just as much on cute cat videos, which have no kind of intellectual property controversy at all.
No, of course. I mean, even, the beginning of YouTube was the videos were, postage stamp sized, and it wasn't really, I mean, Viacom had brought a case, but anyway, the important thing is that creators on YouTube were sort of on the side of the, fighting the big corporations that were trying to own everything, and like we don't need these kinds of protections, dude. This is freedom, this is the internet, yay. And now the content creators that have started making a livelihood on YouTube as you were saying, they're seeing their videos go to Facebook, being monetized on Facebook, and going like, you can't do that. What are you? No, this is mine. And I know it's not the same people necessarily, but it's just, it's funny that this is happening this way. And I'm sure Facebook will do, what YouTube has gone through, and they'll build a content ID type system. But it's just, fun to notice that this has happened. It
is interesting to watch people who cheered against cheered for fair use and cheered against copyright crackdowns, starting to see what happens when their own property is infringed, and having to come to terms of, well, I'm either going to start cracking down myself, or I've got to live by the rhetoric that I used to espouse and live within the realities of the internet. And frankly, I think that's just as hard. It's very hard, but it's almost excusable for someone who grew up in old media, in broadcast media especially, to wrap their heads around an infinitely copyable medium like the internet. It's extra hard, I think, for someone who's been fighting for understand that, and to go, oh wait, now they're taking my stuff. Am I really comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And I am. I have addressed that. That's why I give my books away as PDFs. That's why we make DTNS work the way it does, because that is a fact of the internet. You're going to be in a constant fight of lockdowns, which I don't think is good for all of us.
Yes, no, I agree with you, but I think you're also in a very particular case, which is very different from a YouTube personality or company that creates original content that makes their money on advertising, and the first 2 or 3 days are crucial. And when that video appears on YouTube, someone just copies it to Facebook. And in the first 2 or 3 days, it gets shared immensely on Facebook, and the ad revenue comes to them, and that is a real problem. Not everyone can or
it's
wants
probably
to.
Not as much of a. It's an imaginary problem sometimes, though, because a lot of times, that video would not have gotten all those views if it hadn't been reposted, and sometimes actually causes the original video to get more views. Not an ideal situation, but it's more of an emotional reaction, I think, than it is a cold hard numbers reaction.
I wouldn't go that far. We need to see numbers on this, Tom. I want numbers. Where are the numbers?
That's always my thought on all of these conversations is, let's take an evidence-based approach. Let's actually put copyright law into place that encourages what we want copyright law to do. Let's decide what we want copyright law to do. Do we just want it to encourage creation, or do we want it to protect business models? Some people actually think it should protect business models. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about how the best way to achieve these things is, rather than just sit with what is essentially a broken system. In pretty much.
Well, I think the one thing we can absolutely agree on is that the system as it currently stands on YouTube discourages fair use, and that is a disservice to society, and it's always good when we take a look at it.
I need to grab my gavel. Agreed. Absolutely. Hey, our pick of the day comes from Ted. He was listening to Patrick's reflections on netiquette the other day as he was strolling down the Temescal Alley in Oakland, sipping a hand-pour coffee, eating artisanal charcuterie, and stroking his absurd facial hair. Ted said, I remembered as a young man in the late 90s, I discovered Miss Manner's Guide to the Turn of the Millennium, a guide to the vexing vagaries of email, bulletin board systems, and chat rooms. It was a very interesting and engaging read, and I was able to see through the individual suggestions about technology to the universal rules of decency, and he recommends 2 books for the kids today: Miss Manner's Guide to Excruciatingly Correct Behavior, which is updated with modern scenarios, and Emily Post's Manners in a Digital World. And we'll have links to both of those in the show notes. But there you go, Miss Manners and Emily Post, both embracing some digital there. So I
don't know who or what either of those are, but they seem delightful.
Miss Manners is sort of self-describing. Emily Post is an etiquette expert of, I don't even think she's real, actually. I think she's, or if she was, she probably passed away in the 20s. But she's a brand now. And Ms. Post, if you are real and alive, I apologize. Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Chris wrote in from Chile and Gray, Hamilton, Ontario, was listening to DTNS 2630 from November 23rd and heard one listener's email about drones being prohibited in a park in Japan. Well, last spring, I took my girls on a hike at a local park and came across this, and he had to show us the park sign, which is interesting. It actually shows drones use not permitted in the Royal Botanical Gardens. But then he also hilariously found another pic, which is of a carving on the railing in the park that says, "John Connor was here 2029."
So basically, drones forbidden, but time travel permitted.
Apparently, time travel is okay in that park. So thank you for sending those. If you want to take a look at those, we'll have links in the show notes. Or you can, if you're a Patreon subscriber, that gets access to the treasure chest. I've already thrown them in there as well. We finish up with facial recognition served 3 ways. Got a lot of great response. Apologies if I don't read your response. We got too many good ones to go through on the show regarding the conversation I had with Veronica yesterday about retail doing facial recognition. Dave in Steelville, Missouri, said his dad's uncle was a county sheriff in southern Missouri for many years, and after he retired, took a job as a Walmart guest just for fun, or greeter, sorry, just for fun. He knew a lot of people in the area, and that included good and bad, and he knew the criminal element and also who to keep an eye on when they walked in the store. It was like facial recognition, primitively, but it did reduce the theft a little bit. John from Lovely...
So basically, it was human facial recognition,
right,
but it was
exactly.
absolutely facial recognition.
Absolutely.
Which when I think of it, we all do facial recognition every day.
Yeah.
So
that's what
what's
people always say.
problem?
I'm great with faces, but I'm horrible with names. What was your name again? I do facial recognition. That's what I'm going to say next time. John from Lovely but Chilly Ross on Y says, we call naughty people in the UK scallies, which I looked it up. It's short for scallywag, and it used to just mean people with hoodies and sports clothing, and then it started to be applied to thieves. Made me think, however, as a parallel in the UK, many petrol stations use a system called Shark, which spots and reads number plates and warns the petrol station should that person have driven off without paying other petrol stations. So I think it's a fair representation of what could have been done. Now, I put this 3 ways because Alan Char asks, I think, the most pertinent question. He says, I have so many mixed feelings about facial recognition. And he wrote a lot more than this, but I think this is the essential part. I completely disagree with the idea because they're a store, they can do whatever they want. There are definite civil liberty limitations. On the other hand, he understands why an owner would want to do this to protect his stock. Now, I wrote Alan back and I was like, well, the store can do whatever they want because civil liberties are about rights outside the store. And also, you can't deny service to someone based on their race or religion because of civil liberty laws. But there's no reason on a private property like a store that you can't put a camera up and that you can't then take the video that you have recorded and do facial recognition. And Alan wrote back very rightly and said, well, I think the law needs to be decided on that. Should that be allowed? The way we do intrude into a private situation, at least here in the U.S., and say you can't look at someone's skin color or guess at their religion and say I won't sell to you. Should you be able to say, well, I'm going to record your face, and if you don't like it, don't come into my store?
That is an excellent question, which I'm not sure I or really anyone has a definitive answer on. And I would tend to agree with you, Tom. I'm thinking this might need to be legislated about, and we have to. It's really quite literally a judgment call. We have to decide if this is allowed or not. If together, through the means that we have put in place to make decisions for everyone in our societies, meaning either the legislative bodies or the courts. Do we allow this? And if we do, to which extent? Like, is it okay to look for felons? Is it okay to look for people you've seen before and have caught in the act, even if they haven't been tried? Is it okay? And this is something
where's the line, right?
Exactly, yeah. So
And the NTIA has been trying to have those discussions between retailers and privacy groups. That's the one we mentioned the privacy groups walked out on because the retailers wouldn't budge on permission. The retailers said, no, we don't need permission. And so there isn't a law that requires them to get your permission. But that would be the next step for privacy groups, is to push for that sort of law. I don't love the idea of legislating it, but I think at least legislation that makes it clear, what that law could be, might be something that's worth doing, at least in places that have a working government that can have productive debates rather than just drawing party lines, which is nowhere.
But I think one thing to keep in mind as well is that it's not just about one store owner putting up a camera in their store and looking for people that he knows are, offenders. I think we have to look a little bit beyond that and start to think, once systems have been put in place to put together all of these, to network all of the cameras and the databases and where they get their information, and, then it starts to encroach on civil liberties, because
and that's where right now they have to get their information from local police in most cases. At least that's what that article said yesterday. But that wouldn't always have to be the case. Some startup can start crowdsourcing a database, and then it becomes all of those questions that you were bringing up earlier, and whether that should be allowed or not. So
and who is in that database and how it's applied, and even I would say, you're saying some startup might start to do this. I guarantee you, a startup will. It's unavoidable that it will happen. I mean, honestly, based on our experience in the tech industry, I think
Patrick, only a Sith deals in absolutes, but I think in this case you're probably
You've uncovered my true purpose.
Darth Vader. You folks keep letting us know about this. It's good conversation. We want to keep having it. Thank you to Patrick Beja, twitter.com/notpatrick, and of course frenchspin.com to find his English language podcasts. What's the newest, coolest thing in the podcast universe for you, Patrick?
I guess one that is not on FrenchSpin.com. It's on amove.tv, the Overwatchers podcast.
Boo. I only boo because I don't have Overwatch beta access.
You weren't invited to the stress test beta this weekend?
I'm taking it personally.
I'm sorry. Next time, Tom. But in order to prepare for this, you could go listen to the latest episode of Overwatchers, as I was saying, on amove.tv, because we did a beginner's guide to regale you with all of the important information that might not be 100% intuitive when you get into the game. And, of course, we talk about the game in general. So that would be on amove.tv. And my shows are at FrenchSpin.com. There's a gaming show and a current events show from a global perspective, and you can find that there.
Thank you to our patrons who are getting us towards a 6th day of DTNS based in Australia. Peter Wells from Australia will host our 6th day on Sunday here in this hemisphere, but Monday for him, if we get to the next level. So show us your support. Go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support and choose your favorite way. There are mugs in the store, which you can still probably get shipped in time for the holidays. And there's also a Tom's Wife Works at YouTube t-shirt. It used to say My Wife, it just changed to Tom's today. So go check that out, dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can call us 512-593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv, and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Tomorrow, headlines. Thursday, a holiday headlines. Friday, a holiday headlines. But we'll be back with a normal show on Monday. Talk to you then, folks. Happy Thanksgiving.
The show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right.
Let's get you a title.
Good show.
And let's get you out of here. To the rain room or the other room.
The infinity room.
Infinity room. How about, can't you guys just go like in an elevator with mirrors and close the door and then you're in the infinity room?
I don't know. I haven't seen the infinity room. After I have, then maybe I'll be like, oh, well, you could just go in an elevator with closed doors and mirrors.
Yeah. How about fair use tube?
I like self-driving rockets, but it's not related to the main topic. Fair UseTube isn't bad.
Yeah, I like fair UseTube. All right.
Yeah.
Still looking.
Trial by YouTube.
You can't do that on YouTube.
America's funniest home fair use lawsuits.
I also like Darth Beja, but I'm not sure.
Darth Beja, only you could be so bold. Does she know that's her dad?
What?
That's me watching A New Hope as if I've never seen anything but the first 3 episodes. Darth Vader, only you could be so bold. Also, I assume that she talks in an English accent in those scenes because she's making fun of Grand Moff Tarkin.
I thought she was trying to be Elizabeth Taylor.
I don't know who that is because I'm dumb.
About Star Wars.
About Star Wars, thank you for clarifying.
I'm going to go.
Oh, sure. I want to look like I'm the guy in the rush, and then you just, big time me by leaving before I can. No, it's fine.
Hey, I got places to be. I got business to attend to.
I'm going to see you at that museum, aren't I?
I actually reproduced my apartment in LA just to surprise you. The Infinity Room has very. And you know what?
Welcome, Tom.
I will just be behind the mirrors, and you'll just see me, but you'll never know if it was for real, for sure. And then you'll be like, it was Darth Beja. All right.
I always do.
You're silly. All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
y'all.
Jenny. Bye, Ellie. Bye, Roger. Bye, chat room.
I mean,
Bye,
by y'all,
everyone.
I mean Patrick and all his personal.
And my wife.
Bye. I have a lovely wife. Ellie's beating up on Roger. So fair UseTube, good. I think we'll go with that.
Yeah. Simple, elegant, not your father's title.
No.
What if the
Have you driven a title lately?
Actually, I was going for a simple title from a more elegant, an elegant title from a
simple
simpler
title
time.
from a more civilized age.
Civilized age. See, I'm rusty because I haven't watched them in
Yeah, I just watched it
anticipation
last
of
night,
watching
so
them.
it's totally unfair.
No, what if the Infinity Room is ironically named?
Like, for instance, Han doesn't say, "Don't get cocky, kid."
Yeah.
And I can't actually remember, but I think it's like, hey, kid, good shot, kid, don't get cocky, or something like that. Only a master of evil doth. Which, as dumb Star Wars watcher, I'm like, man, those two just won't stop bickering. They just bickered through all.
Guys.
Bicker. I'm evil now, but I'm still going to be bickering with you.
You know what's interesting, though, when you watch it in that order? Is that Luke really takes after his father. He's really whiny.
Well, they made a good point about that in the Honest trailer for the Star Wars, like the whole Star Wars series, which is that it is possible that Hayden Christensen was trying to be whiny and annoying on purpose to mimic how Luke was in the first movie.
I have an opinion on that you can see in the next edition of Pretend I'm Dumb About
Yay!
Star Wars. But spoiler alert, I don't think Luke is as whiny as Anakin, but I see it sometimes, and there's definitely parts of Leia that are very Padme-like.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's obviously some thought that went into that. It's just how it was executed.
So one thing I never understood, that they never clear up in the movies, is that Luke wants to go to the academy. Is that like the Imperial Academy?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
So he would have been,
That's what I assumed.
would have been essentially enlisted in the Imperial Navy.
Yeah. But he was also kind of excited about the rebellion, about hearing tales about the rebellion. But you know what?
That's kids.
You're not going to go to a rebel academy. You're going to go to the Imperial Academy.
I think
the
it
Empire
just
owns everything.
The Academy, and then the Imperials sort of imperialized it, so it probably has thousands of years of.
Wait a minute. Maybe he just wanted to go to the Army Navy Surplus Store Academy in Austin, Texas. He just wanted to pick up some power converters and, like, you know, an old army backpack, some shotgun bullets.
Pick up the power converters.
In Big's Lighters, the guy he ran, it was his old friend that he met at when they were all setting up for the
Big's Dark Lighter?
yeah, Big's Dark Lighter.
I always thought it was Big's Dark Side, and I was like, whoa.
Whoa.
But he joined the academy, and then somehow he ended up with the rebellion.
That's what makes me think that the academy is like some theoretically vaunted neutral place where you go to learn things.
Also, Biggs didn't go to the academy, right? Like, we didn't see that.
No. But
there's a deleted scene that implies that, but Biggs obviously has already gone off.
I want to make my point.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is, I think that not that we have any knowledge of that, maybe we do from the extended universe, that the academy was like some place where you just trained up to join the Army and the Navy. It just so happens the Army and the Navy is taken over by Imperials who have a very dark fascist purpose. But I don't get the sense that it was inherently evil. It's just governmental, and the people running the government were a little dodgy.
Well, in Lost Stars, the two main characters go to the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, but maybe that's a different academy.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? These
But
things are
my
not always
point
made
is that
clear.
what Roger was saying about Biggs is we only really know from the deleted scene.
But it's also inferred, well, not Biggs directly, but that all of his friends have already left. Like, isn't that what his aunt and uncle say?
Yeah, but they still told everybody they were going to the academy. They were
And then
really
they just
going to
went
the
to-
rebellion. They weren't going to say that. Hey, I'm going to join the rebellion.
The secret rebellion. I'll see you
Don't
later.
tell anybody.
I'm going to go have some seafood. I'm going to have some calamari. And
Oh,
that's just
God.
co-
Don't be a calamariist.
You know, they came up with that name after the guy's lunch. Like one of the guys, writers or whatever, or this Fex guys was having calamari. And he said, oh, we should name him after this.
Oh, my God, I'm getting so hungry.
Oh,
Actually, they talk about how the name was made in How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, and I don't remember the story now. But
I got to read that over the break.
yeah,
it's
it's a good one.
2:15, so I don't know if you need to go.
Yes, I do, but I'm also waiting for the file to export. So
Sorry.
that's all right. You can't see the progress bar. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, though.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. And headline shows for the next few days, but we'll be back full show on Monday.
Full show.